So we have now both seen Captain America.
Yeah, we did.
Captain America 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
We've been at this too long. Close it up. No more podcasts.
We've reached the end. We're making 80s breakdancing movie jokes. And it came up in an earlier cast, and I got the impression you didn't like it.
Oh, actually, I wasn't offended by it. It was just okay. It sucks because it's probably not going to make for a tremendous amount of entertainment to listen to. But I think I read your post on Facebook about how you thought the movie was neither here nor there, that it was just a piece of entertainment, which kept you in your seat for 2 hours, and then you left the theater and went about your day.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's largely how I felt about it.
Okay, well then I think we both had the same experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Like it was. I wish you had seen the second Thor movie. Did you ever?
I have it. I just need to watch it.
Because I thought that was more interesting to me on both the nerd level. Because I thought it was much nerdier. Like it gets kind of noodly. It gets into the fantasy of
let me ask you a question,
stuff.
David.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're getting nerdier?
Do I feel like I'm getting nerdier?
Yeah. Like you watch Thor 2 and you're like, wow, this is really engaging. It's the nerdiest of the movies.
No.
You're now reading comics.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah.
I just was wondering, like, would David
I think it's latent nerdiness.
Latent nerd. Fair enough.
We're just cultivating it. That's what's happening.
It's a great time to be a nerd. So
it's an awesome time to be a nerd. Yeah, so like the nerdy stuff in that, actually I was mostly impressed that it was in there. Like that they had actually been so bold to take it away from being mostly focused on Earth and to take place and explain to you all this really kooky shit that exists in the world of Thor.
I mean, it's a bold decision because one of the things that you want to do with the Avengers when the heroes get together, you want that sense that they are coming from a distance, that Iron Man has his own world, right? I mean, not literally like Thor does, but when you bring them together, that this is not their normal, it's a big deal that the Avengers get together and giving Thor literally his own world, saying Asgard is his home, makes his presence in Avengers more substantive, more meaningful.
Yeah. No, I mean, aside from like what they're planning on doing in 2020, I still think it's cool that they got asses in seats to watch that. And I think that it means that you're right, that it is a great time to be a nerd because it's like becoming more mainstream that you can have a movie that takes place in that universe.
Kidding? Yeah, I mean, like Avengers is one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yeah.
And the only reason it exists is because they took the time to make a fucking Captain America movie and a Thor movie, and they didn't do huge numbers, but they were successful. Yep. And that's, I mean, the genre is the mainstream now.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I really, really enjoyed about that Thor movie was it was more human. It was funny. It was funnier than Captain America. It was tighter. It was just, I mean, I'd be really interested to see what you think of it, but,
well, I'll probably watch it tonight. What the fuck?
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, Captain America, I don't know.
So, I mean,
it's a movie.
Yeah. I guess I'm surprised that you and I, who are perceived by, normal people as being film snobs,
you're right. I had that conversation at lunch the other day.
Really? Tell me what that conversation was. Oh, do we already talk about this?
A little bit, yeah. But it was just sort of like someone trying to draw out where my battle lines were. And,
yes, exactly. Alien or aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't either or, but it was like trying to understand, why would I poo-poo something like Captain America, or why would I be bored by it? Or why would I not come out of the theater thinking that was a great movie? I guess that's what it was, because I think what happens is just like people go in, they have a great time. Awesome. They don't have to, like my not having an amazing time and like feeling like I need to go to the top of the roof and say you guys should go see Captain America should not lessen your enjoyment of the movie. It's just it's fine. It's a fine movie. It's fine
if you're remotely interested in it. Go see it. You'll feel like you got your money's worth.
Yeah,
but it's not gonna I don't know. Maybe like I've noticed a couple of people of wildly different backgrounds. My friend TJ, my friend Frida, our friend Frida, who fucking loved it. Like, wouldn't shut up about it. Best superhero movie ever. And I was like, wow, really?
I like how you're just calling out Frida. Does she listen to us?
No. Are you kidding? No. Thank God. No, I have many times cajoled her and said, you should listen to the podcast. And she's like, whatever. I know what it's like talking to you. I've been there.
Overrated.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, basically. A little of me goes a long way, I think one might say. And we worked together for like 2 years. So that's probably going to last her until 2050. And I was just really surprised. And now talking to you about it, just even right now, I think maybe the reason people who are responding so positively to Captain America 2 is because it is so far among the most kind of grounded and moral and relatable of the superhero films. Like, Cap is a super normal human, but he doesn't have a magic hammer. Mm-hmm. He doesn't fucking shoot lightning bolts out of his eyes.
Fair,
or any of that shit.
Sure, he doesn't have a suit.
No, and unlike Batman, he's
not fucked up.
Kind of no, he's not. He's a good boy. He's a Boy Scout. He's a huge Boy Scout. Yeah. He's everything that a normal person might aspire to be. Mm-hmm. And he is dealing with real world issues. Like, Batman goes and fights the Joker. Fucking Captain America goes and tries to defend Edward Snowden from the NSA. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, that I think maybe it's that allows people to develop affection for this movie, whereas every other film has an explicit fantastical element in it.
I think you give it way too much credit. I think I think the bar is, was I entertained? Was this a fun movie? And if yes, then everyone else should be excited about it. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine for people to come out of the theater and feel like they should tell all their friends to go and have that same experience. The only problem is, like, when I measure something like Captain America, I measure it against other awesome, fun, entertaining movies like that. And, yes. And immediately it goes up against stuff like Aliens, and it goes up against stuff like Fifth Element, and it goes up against kick-ass, awesome, entertaining action, drama, blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
And among those movies, it's nothing special.
It's not. I already know people who have seen it twice, and it's only now been out for a week. And that surprises me.
That surprises me
because,
too.
Yeah. It surprises me because it's like, well, all right. Like, what was there to do again? Like,
right.
You can spend an awful lot of time with a movie like The Fifth Element. You can spend an awful lot of time with any Ridley Scott movie and see stuff over and over again. But I feel like Captain America, a lot of these movies are just like roller coaster rides. And I guess people go on roller coaster rides more than once. Why not? They just want that thrill. They just want that thrill, that emotional experience. But for me, it lacks, while in no way I feel being like bad, it lacks that kind of, it's not challenging. There's nothing in it that I go, wow, I've never seen that before. It's just stuff I have seen before and just put together in different orders.
No, and I think it's really just a matter of execution. Like, when you look at The Fifth Element, well, let's hold that up as the bar. Like, it doesn't.
It's a pretty high bar for me.
It's a really high bar. Yeah. But there's nothing like incredibly challenging about it. The visuals, well, I think are.
You're right. But there is that thrill of, I've never seen this before. I want to spend more time here.
Sure.
Right. I want to. Yeah. And
there is more to go back to, but even just if you could only watch it once, there's just not that much more. Like, it's just a really well executed version of that. Like, it's just so well. There's so much depth to it, and I think that comes from that execution. Like, they could have made. They knew what they needed to make in this movie, which, and I think you already identified it, right? Like, they need to make this movie really good, so you still care about Captain America when he comes back for the next Avengers movie, right? Like, he still has to be relevant in some way.
I mean, yeah.
So they needed to do that, but that's it. Like, this.
Well, they've done it.
They didn't need to flesh him out so much, because nobody thinks that that Captain America is going to be the thing that carries Marvel for the next 20 years, right?
No. Well, and that's why I do. There's a lot of stuff I liked about the movie. And I think because No, with the exception of the Avengers films, none of these heroes have to. Maybe Iron Man. None of them are shouldering the burden of the entire thing. And actually, I sort of feel like the Avengers movie demonstrates that it's not the Iron Man show. It's not the Tony Stark show. It's not the Robert Downey Jr. show.
That's true. But he did manage to hold together 3 movies or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's his stuff is great. Yeah. But are any of those movies? I mean, Avengers, the first Iron Man, but do either of the other Iron Man movies rate?
No,
I don't think so.
No.
And
well,
so
I think what you can do, and I think Avengers is the perfect example of this, is you can take a bunch of Bs and put them together and make something greater than the sum of those Bs. Like you can
and get an A.
You can get an A out of it, and I think that's cool.
I completely agree.
I think that's awesome that they've figured out.
And they can, because Captain America is not the guy who shoulders the burden of this entire multiple franchise universe. They're free to do stuff in the Captain America movie that surprised me. Like they change that universe. Like at the end of Captain America, the plot has advanced, and whatever the next movie is, it's going to be taking place in a different Marvel universe than the ones we've seen before. You're not going to be able to watch these movies in any order and have them make sense. Right? And that's amazing. That's astonishing to me that they decide to do that. They're like,
actually, I kind of thought the opposite. There was a lot of stuff in that movie that was referential to the first one. Of course. But I didn't feel like if you didn't know that stuff, you would not enjoy that movie.
No, but like
it was only additive. It was only like if you knew all the shit that happened in Captain America 1 awfulmovie.com, then you would actually be able to get more from the second one.
If you watch, like, what's the this is the, I mean, we're going to start talking about the plot and the real spoiler. This is real spoiler. This is real spoiler territory, so be aware.
The movie's been out for like 3 weeks. It's already like, it's out of theaters. It's on DVD.
Certainly by the time we get this edited and posted, that'll be true. Like, they destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. It's gone. Nick Fury is now a fucking wandering monk who's going to, go to Tibet or whatever. And so the next movie, if you watch that movie before like the first Avengers movie, it's not gonna make sense. You're gonna be like, well, I don't understand why is S.H.I.E.L.D. what happened? You see what I mean? That's what I mean. Okay. When I say the plot is advancing, I mean like this world state is changing.
Sure.
And one of the things, like when pressed on why I didn't fucking love it, as opposed to just enjoy it, the only thing I could come up with, among other things, what a terribly constructed line of thought. I was like, look, I don't really believe in S.H.I.E.L.D. at that level. I believed in S.H.I.E.L.D. as this kind of shadowy organization, almost like X-Files type, dealing with stuff that the rest of the world can't know about. Right? Like they're the guys that find Thor's hammer and kind of wall it off from the rest of the world. So it doesn't end up on the cover of the LA Times. But now in this movie, S.H.I.E.L.D. is colossal. It's a massive fucking
It's like next to the Pentagon.
Yes. It's bigger than the Pentagon. It's fucking huge. And they've got these huge, like they've got government subcommittees. S.H.I.E.L.D. is as far as I can tell, it's meant to be like a multinational organization, but at the same time there's a American senator who's in charge of it and all this stuff, and that I found a little kind of not believable, and it was difficult for me to imagine that like Cap would care about this stuff, because I didn't care about it. I don't know,
even if it's not believable, I think nobody should care about it, right? Like the politics of the organization and the scale that it exists at, and like that is the noodly nerdy, like going down the rabbit hole of, well, how did it get established and what year, and where did they decide to build the building?
I mean, I actually quite liked that thing with the AI, the 1970s AI that we made.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
I thought it was neat. I was like, that's cool. Cool.
I had actually not seen that before.
Yeah, that note, like here's HAL, but built in 1973, and so it takes thousands of reel-to-reel tapes in order to make them work.
Yeah,
and
I think it's cool.
I thought that was super neat. And I liked the idea in principle that like S.H.I.E.L.D. had actually quite many years ago been infiltrated by Hydra and was basically Hydra 2.0. I'm like, that's cool. But maybe it's the absence of Clark Gregg, who was the S.H.I.E.L.D. character previously, right? Like he's that dude that knows he gets killed by Loki, and now he's got his own TV show.
Got it, right.
And maybe it was his absence. Like,
how funny would it be if then you had to watch that show? Wait, isn't that show off the air now because they just blow up S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Well, they're apparently you need to watch that show because shit goes down in that show. Like the ending credits. I don't know because I haven't watched it because it was so bad.
Okay.
I watched like the first 4 or 5 or 6 episodes. And I was like, this is terrible. But the last episode ended and the closing credits had, instead of the Shield logo, had the Hydra logo.
Cool.
So shit is going down in that show, and it makes me vaguely interested in what's happening.
That makes me kind of interested.
Yeah. And the notion that like they definitely want these two things to interact as much as possible. But in the absence of having that kind of everyman character that is Clark Gregg, that actor, being the dude in Shield that everybody likes and finds him likable, we don't get to see his reaction to the Shield stuff. Maybe that would have made it more grounded. I don't know. I liked some of the combat sequences. I really liked the attempt to get into Nick Fury's car. Like I thought that was
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
But like the opening sequence where they just kill a bunch of mooks on a boat.
Yeah.
I was like, does this need to be like 12 minutes long? Because like all it is Cap, these two incredibly talented superhuman or near superhuman characters are going to run around a boat beating up some mercenaries. Yeah. Like and they take a long time doing it. And I don't know why.
Yeah. And even the spaceships, even the aircraft carrier things were like, it was kind of agonizing. Like, okay, we get it. You know, I don't know. It just was overkill. A lot of action.
I did like this. There was I think it was the main event was this running battle between the Winter Soldier and Falcon, Captain America, and Black Widow, like on the streets of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that was...
And that was intense. I thought it was really well done and well imagined. Like somebody had to imagine each of these little reversals, each of these little like Indiana Jones style. You think you have the upper hand and then everything collapses. And goes back and forth.
I was just so... Like, the thing is, I guess I was bored by that because I knew that was... Like, even though that fight was really interesting... Yeah, that wasn't where the conclusion was going to happen. Oh, so it was just kind of buttering me up for when are these things going to get out of the air. It's like they showed us the gun, and the gun was those freaking giant warship things,
the helicarriers,
and we knew that they had to get up there at some point, and that they were going to explode or fall. You know, my wife mentioned while we were watching the movie that like these things are going to fall into the city and then end up killing more people than they were planning on shooting, but luckily they landed perfectly in the water. That was nice.
Well, they crashed into the Shield building, right? Taking it down. So
well, just all the 100,000 employees in there. There you go.
Yeah, they're all gone. Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think I maybe liked it a little bit more than you because I was more engaged, I think, with some of the action sequences. Mm-hmm. But I felt like some of them were superfluous. I didn't really care about the Winter Soldier so much. No. He's a dude you spend like 30 seconds with in the first movie.
Yeah, and the way that they get you to care about him is like through this shitty flashback. It's like, sorry, that doesn't cut it.
No, I didn't believe in that either. It didn't engage me. But I am interested in seeing what happens next. Like the ending of this movie is interesting. And the notion that these characters now are going to kind of go off on their own and be it's like Ronin. Like the next movie is going to be Ronin. Like there's no CIA anymore. There's no Cold War. There's just these guys off on their own. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. So at that level, I'll go see the next movie. I'll go see the next Captain America movie. It's not like Lord of the Rings where I felt abused, right? I'm like, this is a mistake. Why did or I should say The Hobbit. Why did I do this?
I feel like I felt similar to how I felt about Captain America as I did about the third Iron Man movie. Which is something that I just kind of saw because, you know,
it's the next
thing, and why not? I don't feel like I'm not excited to go see it, but I'll see it anyway, and hopefully I won't be disappointed. And there was actually was the third one that was the Ben Kingsley one, right?
Yeah.
So there was actually some really funny stuff and really entertaining stuff in that movie, but also a bunch of other crap. And I largely just felt kind of just sort of indifferent about both of them. Like they're the most memorable thing about Iron Man 3 was Ben Kingsley, like hands down. Like and then I think maybe second was who's the actor that was in Prometheus? Guy Pearce. Yeah.
I mean, I really liked Guy Pearce in that. I just wanted to see his story,
right? But we just never actually. It was like a tease. Yeah. It was like a tease to have in there.
Exactly.
What's the most memorable thing in Captain America?
I mean, I feel like it's probably, for me at least, it was that the trying to get Nick Fury out of that car That whole chase, like they did a really good job of like, if Shield is going, if Hydra disguised as Shield is going to go after Nick Fury, how are they going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to lock all this stuff down electronically so that when he calls for help, he's not on the grid. He doesn't show up. And that also, to me, I thought was clever because this is how you have a movie with Captain America in danger and Iron Man doesn't show up. Is because these guys are on the run. No one knows where they are.
Right.
No one can help them. They can't rely on anybody. They can't talk. And I mean, I don't know. I think I definitely liked it better than you did because just remembering the movie makes me kind of want to see it again. Like I liked the Falcon. I liked the interaction between Cap and that dude.
Yeah. I thought it was cool.
I thought it was kind of obvious, but not forced. And that's,
it felt a little forced to me.
I'm not surprised. It's a matter of taste.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I can see that when I look at it, that I like it. They're walking a fine line.
Yeah.
But they had chemistry. I thought real chemistry and I enjoyed
I actually really like that actor, the Falcon actor.
Yes.
I thought he was pretty cool.
Is it Anthony something? I don't remember. I liked Scarlett.
I actually like that guy better than I liked freaking Captain America.
Yeah. You want to see that dude's story. Yeah. You want to watch where that guy goes next.
Yeah, I do actually.
I mean,
Captain America is just actually. I mean, I think if there's one big red mark on it, it's actually just Captain America himself as a character. Yeah. He kind of has that same sort of Superman thing going, where he is just like he is supposed to be moral, and he is supposed to be the all-American. And I don't know. It's just hard.
But they gave him stuff like this is not freedom. This is fear. Right. And that's putting basically, I mean, having Disney, I guess they can afford to do this. They bought our government. Having Disney say pretty close to explicitly, Captain America would think Edward Snowden was a hero. Mm-hmm. Right. That's ballsy. And I liked watching that interplay, and I would watch it again because like I did not know that we were going to see. Maybe I need to see this movie again. I did not know that we were going to see Hydra in this movie at all.
Wow. I love how we went from, okay, lukewarm to I need to see this movie again.
I did enjoy it.
I'm just surprised.
I did enjoy it. I did have a good time, and I while it's true that I wasn't thinking about it afterwards, I find myself as I am talking about it here being like, wow, that was really neat. I want to see it again. Wow. And there's stuff the fact that I did not know Hydra was going to show up meant that I was not suspicious of Robert Redford. Mm-hmm. I was
immediately suspicious of Robert Redford.
How do I put this? Like, it's not that I wasn't suspicious of him. That's not entirely true. I didn't know where he was going to fit in. And I would not have been surprised to discover that he's a bad guy or how he's going to be a bad guy.
Okay.
But like, dude, they had Robert Redford die in this movie and his last words were, "Hail Hydra." Like, wow. Robert Redford said, "Hail Hydra."
That's trippy. Yeah, I guess that's weird.
That to me, I
didn't really notice how weird that is.
That is fucking weird, and they did it, and I felt like they earned it and got away with it, and I was like, wow, Robert Redford said, "Hail Hydra."
I don't know. I think the Hail Hydra stuff sounded a little bit forced to myself.
Well, I mean, it's comic booky. And it's kind of Silver Age comic booky, 70s, like Jim Steranko.
Right, in the thing with helicopters or whatever the hell they are. Helicarriers.
The helicarriers. Yeah. But like when, what's his name? Who's that? When Gary Shandling.
What the hell is he doing in that movie? Jesus.
I don't know. I don't know.
He did not age well. Poor guy.
No.
I love Gary Shandling. He's funny.
Yeah, he is funny, but I think they put him in there because he does a good slime ball.
I didn't think so.
Well, okay.
But maybe I've just seen him as funny characters too often. I'm like...
But isn't he often the funny slime ball?
I don't know, maybe.
So like when Gary Shandling says, "Hail Hydra" to that dude, I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow. Well, I mean, that's the difference between us is that I was like, it felt creepy. It felt creepy. Like these guys could be fucking everywhere. And it worked on me. So I don't know. Like, I think I did like it more than you, and I think I probably would go see it again.
I think you'll be disappointed if you do.
I would maybe.
I think you'd probably shift like closer to my camp if you actually did. It's funny because I feel like I'm painting a more negative picture on it, and I think that I didn't actually think about a lot of these things. I wasn't really like super conscious of things that irked me or things that didn't feel really true.
Yes.
As we're sort of exposing more about the movie and thinking about it in more depth, it's actually getting worse the more I think about it.
Yeah. Whereas it's getting better to me for the same reasons.
Which is bizarre, but it also just kind of tells me like that when I watched it, the way that I experienced it, I left the theater. I was like, that was fun. I'm glad that we did that. It was a good way to spend 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, I know a little bit more about Captain America. Whoop-de-doo. And I think that is a fine experience to have.
Yes,
totally. I think that's a.
I mean, this is the danger of what we're doing is we're overanalyzing something. It was fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't think it bears close scrutiny.
Right.
Then we're giving it close scrutiny.
Yeah. Exactly.
And,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I think that if you were to, after having this conversation, then trying to dig in to find that depth, if you were to go watch it again, you would find that it's not there.
I might. I mean, like I said, of the 4, I think, major action sequences in the movie, I think 2 of them I found super interesting, and the other ones I found long and interminable. I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
Yep.
And there's a lot of like, I didn't care about the satellite or the missile on the boat. I didn't care when it turned out that Captain America and Black Widow were kind of given different missions. I didn't care. I was like, okay, fine. So when Captain America is upset, I'm like, who cares, man? And then I didn't care that Nick Fury was kind of trying to run his own like operation. And that didn't bother me. But I'll tell you, this is like, I think I know how I can guess, I think, how you felt about this. I started to get engaged with the movie when Nick Fury is fucking shot and his last words to Captain America are, "Don't trust anyone." I was like, wow, this is not the movie I thought I was in for. This is going to be like a fucking paranoid 70s thriller. That's why they got Robert Redford, because they want that 3 days of the Condor thing. And it would have been a better movie, I think, if they had really amped that up. Like, you never really feel as though Captain America is alone and desperate.
Yeah.
Right. That never happens.
Yeah, you're right.
And so have you seen 3 Days of the Condor, by the way?
It sounds really familiar.
It's super good. It's super, super good. And I'll pitch it because when I pitch it to people, they're like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. It's Robert Redford. And he's like, this is a young, good looking Robert Redford who's like in his mid 20s or playing somebody in his mid 20s. And he's working in a Washington, DC, like a brownstone. And you go inside and it looks like a fucking dentist's office or something. And there's a secretary and he says hi and he's brought sandwiches for everybody. But when he rings in and the secretary looks to see who it is, and she presses the open the door button, there's a shot of her hand under the desk and it's on a gun that is mounted to the underside of the desk. And that's the first moment that you realize this place is not a dentist's office, right? And he comes in and he walks around. Everyone there is really young, except for the lady behind the desk, and they're bubbly and they're talking about all sorts of interesting stuff. And he's passing out the sandwiches he bought for everybody. And then there's like a room that has all these fucking computers in it, and the computers are doing all this work. And they talk, and then he has to go out because he forgot something for somebody, and he's like, "Oh, I'll go get you another one." And he goes out and he gets another sandwich for the dude he forgot a sandwich for. And when he comes back, the 8 or 9 people in this office have all been brutally murdered and there's blood everywhere and they're
awesome.
Dead. Right. And it turns out that
that's the opening of the movie.
Yes.
That's awesome.
That's the setup.
That's awesome.
Right. And you find out,
if that had happened, if Cap had come in, instead of trying to get accosted by these random dudes, he'd come in and just like, there was no sign of Hydra or SHIELD because
there was
everything had been wiped out.
Yes.
But that was probably one of the problems, is that they created this huge edifice, and it was like, well, how do you deal with that? You just like kill 100,000 people that work there? Like, you can't do that. So, well, I mean, that's I think that, but if they I don't know how, they tried, they tried, and I think they couldn't do it because they built, maybe you're right. Maybe they built such a large edifice, they couldn't do it. But like Robert Redford going to a phone booth and calling in to CIA Central Command, which, by the way, is the movie fantasy version of CIA Central Command, where it looks like the war room from Doctor Strangelove. Right.
And he calls in and they're like, they're all dead, blah, blah. And the guy on the phone is just like, what is your designation? And he's like, they're all blah, blah. He goes, what is your designation? And he's like, I don't remember. It was Condor. It's Condor. Right. And they're like,
I'm pretty sure
okay.
I've seen that movie.
Well, there you go. Like and then it's about how and he it's super good. And it's the reason they picked Robert Redford for this movie was because they wanted that 70s paranoid thriller feeling.
Right.
But while there is like Captain America is a wanted man, all of S.H.I.E.L.D. is out to get him. I didn't believe in that.
Yeah. I didn't believe there was never any threat there. And really, because I never, for about 4 seconds, I thought Nick Fury might be dead.
Me too. And that's not bad. That 4 seconds is not bad.
Yeah. I was like wow, that's bold. They killed off Nick Fury. Go them.
And look, here's the thing. If they killed Nick Fury and there was no doubt that he was dead, then we get the paranoid Cap is on his own, desperate, every hand is turned against him.
Oh yeah. Right? Because he's the only other connection that he has.
Yes, correct. Yeah, Nick Fury hands over the USB stick and says, "Trust no one."
Dies.
And they blame Nick Fury's death on Captain America, which they never tried to do, right? But they could have done, right? And it was like,
then it's a man
Black Widow. Yeah, exactly. And Black Widow didn't believe it, right?
Oh, if she was against him too. Oh my God, that would have been great.
Now, exactly. Now we get that
a movie.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we were missing. I never really believed that Cap was in danger. And also the presence of Falcon, who was awesome, meant that as soon as those characters meet, you are yearning for them to go off on an adventure together. Mm-hmm. Right. And they didn't do a sufficiently good enough job of getting me to forget about that dude. Mm. Like when Captain America, beaten and bloody and on the run, shows up at that dude's apartment, and that dude thinks for a minute Captain America's a bad guy because he's seen the news, then you have an interesting relationship between these two characters.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not what we get. What we get is they are immediately friends. They immediately hit it off. As soon as something goes wrong, Cap goes and finds the dude.
It's just super convenient.
Yeah, it's all incredibly fucking convenient because they are catering to the audience's desire to see these characters together off on an adventure. They want to put the dude in the Falcon suit, which is awesome. It was super cool. I liked it. But the delayed gratification has value. Yeah. Like put that shit.
Well,
off,
and what's so strange about not killing Nick Fury is that you might as well have, because by the end of the movie, he's like going off. Yeah, there's no shield. And,
so what is there for him to do?
And he's going off to do something completely different. So who gives a shit? He might as well be dead. He might as well be in a grave making this a really good movie.
Well, I mean,
but I guess that's the Marvel trap, is that like you can never kill off anybody.
Well, there hasn't been a Nick Fury movie. And unless they're going to make one, which would be cool, I guess. I mean, people forget. People don't understand.
He's like behind a desk.
Well, Nick Fury.
Actually, I know nothing about the character, but yeah.
Dude, Nick Fury is fucking awesome. But the Nick Fury that I know is not Samuel L. Jackson. The Nick Fury I know is the Jim Steranko. Have I not shown you this picture? Okay. See?
All right. That's a very different Nick Fury you've got there.
Yeah. And that guy is nowhere in evidence. But if they wanted to be like,
actually, that's not true. That's not true. He was pretty cool when he was like, his car was getting attacked.
Yes. I mean, yeah, that's true. And if they went and did a Nick Fury movie, I might be in, especially if it looked like that picture I sent you. Like if it was, oh, this is why Nick Fury was in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because when it comes down, when he's an agent as opposed to an administrator, this is the shit you get. Mm-hmm. The only kind of asterisk, it's not even a caveat, it's just a little footnote, is that Samuel L. Jackson is like 66 years old or something.
He can't do it.
Right.
He can't do it.
I mean,
and he's probably stretching what they can do with him now. Actually, what they could do is they could do young Sam Jackson, Nick Fury movie.
I mean, I completely believe that if Nick Fury had died, and that,
then we'd have a Captain movie.
Yes, and Captain America was blamed for Nick Fury's death, and somehow, and you ended up with this fucking like incredibly paranoid thriller.
And how perfect would it have been for that paranoia to culminate in then discovering Hydra in the way that he did, and then let alone Hydra has been here all along again. Like that.
Imagine. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the 70s paranoid thriller, and it has something in common with modern filmic science fiction. And that is, it assumes there's an undercurrent of everything I know is false. Everything I know is wrong. Blade Runner. Maybe I'm an android, right? The Matrix. Maybe the world isn't real. Robert Redford. Maybe the CIA are all bad guys. So once you have like, how different is the scene where Captain America meets the fucking Swiss evil genius who's turned himself into an AI?
I like how you called out that he was Swiss. That was nice.
Well, I didn't, know, I'm not,
Sure.
Some of my best friends are German. How astonishing would that scene be if Captain America was alone when that happened?
Oh, sure.
Right. And he's like,
it'd be overwhelming.
This
You'd
be
be like,
real?
how is this even possible?
He would doubt his own perception. He would be like, how is it possible this is happening? And then his desperate attempts to convince, this is how the real Captain America 2 should have gone. He finds out by himself. He has that same scene. He's just by himself when it happens. And now he's got this thing he has to convince the Black Widow about.
Yeah.
And
check this out. There's a computer from the 60s and it's AI.
Yeah.
And she's just like,
right.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I had doubts that you were the bad guy, but now I know that you are. Yeah. Now I know you're the bad guy. Yes, perfect. Exactly. And I apologize to people who really fucking loved Captain America 2.
But we just made a better version of it.
We just made there's a much better movie in there. Yeah. And if you need to bring Nick Fury back at the end of that, probably you could.
Yeah, you probably could. You probably could because it'd be so disorienting.
Yes. And then you get back to that notion of like, is it possible that everything I know is wrong? Is it possible that I'm the bad guy? Is it possible that Hydra brainwashed me? And, I was in stasis for fucking 70 years.
That's true. There's also that disorientation and isolation of him being the guy that was defrosted.
Yes. Like, how do you know that the dude that came out of the defrosting was the guy that went in when you're the dude? Who knows? So, I mean, that possibility existed. They had all the bones
having
of that
a real
story.
Crisis. And sort of being in a moment where
that's the thing.
He might actually believe that the world is meant to be run by Hydra.
Well, that would be like, I can like putting Captain America in a position where he doesn't know what to do is, to me, very interesting because Captain America fucking in this, like,
it's clear. He always knows what to do. It's always clear.
He always knows what to do. He sees things in terms of black and white, and that's his whole point. And when somebody comes up to him and says, well, the world's full of gray, he goes, no, it's not. And the movies say he's right. Right. He's right. And so I want to put him in a situation where he's not right. And or at least it's not obvious that he's right. And he begins to doubt. And I think, Captain America would never believe that Hydra was right and that this is the way the world should be. But he might believe that he had been brainwashed by Hydra. He might see what they did to Bucky and created the Winter Soldier and say, you're the success. He's the failure.
Right.
And he'd be like, oh my God, is it possible that I'm actually a Hydra agent? Right. And then it's not his moral sense that's challenged. It's his memory and identity that's challenged. And that to me is an interesting story.
Well, and his intuition. Right.
Yeah, exactly. His intuition. Yeah. Yes. And so,
that would be super interesting.
I mean, there's a better.
Because you could even have the scene where the Winter Soldier tries to talk him back.
Yes. And says, you don't understand who you are.
You don't get it.
You don't understand.
We're bred by Hydra. We were part of the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
You're my brother.
Come back over to.
Come back.
Yeah. Yes. We've been friends for 70 years. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the movie we got, I think, is a pale echo of the movie that you and I should have made. So it's not their fault that there was no way for them to know that we had a better Captain America in us. They didn't consult us, but yeah, I mean, so that's the reality. Like if you're listening to this, go watch 3 Days of the Condor. Super good movie. Really interesting. And by the way, like it turns out that a lot of what happens in 3 Days of the Condor is motivated by oil, which is considering this is a movie from like 1973, it's pretty prescient.
Yeah. And you can also, look us up on facebook.com/Squarecast and tell us what you thought about our version of Captain America.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super interested to hear. Like, is there anyone listening who's like, well, you're right, that'd be better, or is it mostly like, wow, these guys are incredible. They've completely gone up their own assholes. They've completely disappeared. They don't get how much fun and awesome the Captain America movie was, and they want to go back to the 1970s. when they made good movies. True. So, I mean, yeah, come by Facebook/Squarecast and let us know how wrong we are.